Hello, welcome to the data channel and you are watching Microsoft Fabric course and this is a topic 8. As part of this topic 8 we are bringing up the video which explains about the Microsoft licensing and costing. So basically if you have worked in Microsoft like landscape, right, definitely you know it. Microsoft will not give you the straightforward licensing and costing. It little bit make it complicated to understand. So I don't know the reason, but for some reason the Microsoft licensing and costing is complicated, and it is same as when it comes to the Microsoft Fabric as well. And that is what we want to decode here in this video and make it simpler for for you to choose the licensing and costing when you're using the Microsoft Fabric. And you might be a like an architect, you might be a project manager, or you might be someone who is interested in understanding the Microsoft Fabric as a developer as well. So this video is for you. So before proceeding, if you are new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. And also please watch the video till end to get the maximum out of it. So let's get started. So to understand Microsoft Fabric licensing, we need to understand the four main components. That is tenant, capacity, workspace, and domains. So that coming, the tenant is at a top level of the organization unit in Fabric, and a domain can have one or more tenants. So this is similar to the Power BI tenant. And capacity is a pool of resource that can used for Microsoft Fabric services. Remember, it also includes Power BI. And workspace is where the sharing happens between the users or the developers or the analyst, and they can collaborate. So basically, they might create data flows, they might create data pipelines, and they can write some code, right? And they can share with other developers. And workspace is assigned to the capacity, right? But you can have one or more than one capacity assigned to a workspace. So now let's come to this and understand, right? So suppose there is an organization, right? This is organization, and so each organization can choose to have a tenant. And tenant, as you can see, it comes in the same hierarchy or at the level of organization, right? So each organization can have one tenant, or it can have multiple tenants, right? And it again depends on the organization, like a hierarchy, organization structure, how it looks like. If it is a too complicated organization, they might choose multiple tenants, but usually most of the organization choose like one tenant. Okay, and the next one is the business units, right? So business units can be like, say for example, one organization is having a multiple business unit like sales, marketing, advertising, right? And they can have retail, right? And all those things, right? Basically, right, all these business units can have their own capacity, right? So capacity is where you are getting charged. So please note that. So you are not getting the Microsoft is not getting money from the tenant level. So they are getting the money from the capacity level. That means each business unit, that means each revenue business generating units, right? So business units owns this capacity, right? So each business unit, suppose there is a sales business unit, right? So they have to bear their expenses for the particular this capacity that they are creating. And similarly, there's a marketing business unit, so they have their own capacity, and their billing will be on that capacity. So they have to own their own capacity, and the billing they have to pay accordingly, right? And finally, there is something called as teams and project, right? Suppose there is a sales business unit is having a different teams. So teams you can consider, again, it might be a geographical team which is located in different geographical locations, right? Or it can be like, say for example, there is subgroups of the business units who are working independently, and they want to have their own workspaces, right? And this can be departments, right? So each sales business units can have their own departments, and each department can have their own workspaces. So workspaces, as we have already understood, so workspace is a place, it is a logical group basically, right? So it's a logical group where you can group the users and developers and collaborate their development activities and share their like data flows and workflows and the data pipelines with the other people working in the different workflows, right? And so as you can see here, the workspace is below capacity. That means workspace, whenever you create a workspace and you start using the workspace, right? So you are charged so you this workspace is tagged to this capacity, right? So that means you are charging for this workspace. So similarly, the workspace can be tagged to multiple capacities. So it can be tagged to this capacity, and also parallelly it can be tagged to the same time it can be tagged to the other capacity. So what is the need of doing this? Yeah, practically there might be need, right? So this is a sales business unit. So as you can see, and this is a marketing business unit, right? And like you have a workspace where there are particular data flows or the pipelines which are running for sales, and there might be few data flows or pipelines which are running for the marketing division, the business unit, right? So the charge this particular workspace is having both the pipelines belongs to sales and marketing, and it has to these pipelines has to charge for this capacity that which belongs to sales, and these pipelines and the workflow should charge for the capacity that is belong to the marketing business unit, right? So that is how logically it is important that you need to understand that the workspace can be tagged to the multiple capacities, and they can charge for multiple capacities. But end of the day, the Microsoft is charging you on top of the capacities, right? Whether you have a tenant capacity or workspace, but the charging is always on the capacity, because you have seen in the previous slide, right? That is based on the capacity, CUs, capacity units, right? And the finally you have something called as domain. So domain is a logical group of workspaces, and used to organize data and resources and maintain the access. Please note that maintain the access. Each domain has their own set of users and with their own permissions, right? And so why this permissions is important? That because they want to share the data access and the resource access, or the restrict the data and resourcing access, right? Suppose you have a domain, right? So this particular domain can be a domain one, which is a combination of these two workspaces. Logically, this is, we are calling it as a domain one here, right? And this domain one, you are giving access to whom? You might be giving access to the, like say, a Power BI user, right? So Power BI users or Power BI developers where they want to create a dashboard. And like these two workspaces, right, which are belong to the different, one is from marketing, one from sales. This we can call it as a domain two, and this domain two access you can give to a like a data science team or data engineering team to do some data analysis, right? So that is how the domain is logically it's a logical concept. So now let's understand in taking a real-time example, right? So suppose there is a two organization, as you can see here. So you can consider here we are considering a retail organization, retail company A and retail company B. So it can be a retail or any other organization, that doesn't matter. But just what is matter is you have two organizations here, and one organization is having only one tenant, because this organization thinks that is sufficient, or that is logically makes sense for them, right? And the other organization is actually choosing two different tenants. One is finance tenant and marketing and sales tenant, right? But what is important is, yeah, definitely to understand one organization can have multiple tenants, but more important thing here is the hierarchy, right? So after tenant you have a capacity, after capacity you have a workspace. So same, right? So here you have a tenant, capacity, workspace, tenant, capacity, workspace. Everywhere that hierarchy will be followed up. And so here in the organization A or the company A, as you can see, they have segregated the capacity, right? So after the tenant, the capacity comes. So as we told, it might be a business unit, right? So they are considering here it as a business unit, like marketing is one business unit, sales is one business unit, and inside that they have a product department, pricing department, people department. So they which have their own workspaces, but end of the day all these department are charging to Microsoft like a marketing capacity. Similarly, sales is having enterprise team and data direct sales team, so which are using the sales capacity. So similarly, the finance capacity also having their three workspaces. And coming to the company B, that is organization B. So how they have created is they have created two separate tenants because their organization might be very huge enough, or they might want to segregate it for some logical reasons. So here they are choosing two different tenants itself, and it is their choice, or it is their option they want to choose, right? And in each tenant, like so procurement capacity in finance, they want to have two different capacities. One is procurement and human resource. So it's again they have segregated based on some um, like a organization level. They want to have this kind of segregation, like procurement and capacity, which is a separate business units basically, right? And in the inside that you have a admin workspace and travel workspace, right, which are charging to the procurement, and similarly here admin and workspace which are charging to human resource capacity. But in the other tenant, interestingly, they have created a capacity based on the geographical locations. So this is also important to understand, right? The capacity need not be a business unit level or some kind of logical organization group level. It can be anything, right? It can be like, say, for example, as you see here, they have created for each continental geographical locations, they have created one capacity, right? And inside that, for each country level, they have created one workspaces. So this is again purely depends on how your organization is hierarchically separated, and how the cost center works, how the costing and finance works. So all those billing works, right? So how all considering all those things that they might have chosen here to have the um, geographical based capacity planning and workspace planning, right? And other thing is, as you can see, workspace. We have seen here, right? So the workspace, this particular workspace is using procurement, and parallelly it can use workspaces of human resource also, because one workspace can use capacity of multiple uh, capacity of multiple capacities, right, of or capacity of multiple business units. So similarly, like this is a workspace, right? It's already using Europe capacity. So in the same time, the finance workspace, there might be a small department or a small team which is working for Australia, right? So in that case, they can even charge for the Microsoft or using Australia capacity. So it doesn't restrict that if you are a finance workspace, you should charge for capacity Europe only, right? So you can, for some portion of that workflow or the pipelines or some transformation that you are doing, still you can charge for the Australia capacity, this particular workspace, right? And the domain wise also, right? So you can have a domain like logically clubbed, right? But before that, right? So here you can still do this, right? Like you can, one workspace can use the capacity of different departments, but it cannot be like cross tenant. So it cannot charge for the this France workspace cannot charge for the travel workspace because it is completely in the different tenant here. Okay. And next, if you coming to the domain also, right? So in the domain case, domain is again a logical uh, logical grouping of a one or two workspaces, right? So here these two you can call it as a domain one, right? Because and you want to maintain their access and all those access roles and all pertaining to the data and the processing pipelines and all. So you can create a domain one, and you can give access to the particular team, right? And similarly here you can club all these three, right? Australia capacity one and France, Italy, these three you can club into one, and you can call it as a domain two, and you can give access to the like separate team two. Okay. But again here also, right, you cannot club the capacity of the this admin workspace from the human resource capacity and Australia capacity, which is from the Australia capacity, both which are both around from the different tenants. This is not possible. Okay. So and so this is simple to understand. If you logically understand the steps and concept, it is very simple to understand. Okay. So now let's move to the concept of capacity and licensing. So this is again as part of the Microsoft documentation. So as you can see, CU, what we're calling it as here, it is nothing but a capacity units, right? So as you can see, we were talking about, right? So every time it is actually charging the capacity level. If you go to the previous slide, right, we were always talking the charging will always be at a capacity level, right? So if we can go and see the previous slide also, so the charging will always be at a capacity level, whether we have a tenant capacity or workflow domain. So Microsoft charges you on the capacity. So that's what we are seeing in this slide. Okay. So capacity units, right? And capacity units again, it's one of the measure of Microsoft in the Microsoft Fabric space to charge its customers. So Microsoft will never share what exactly it is and how it is calculated, right? So it just says CU, right? So it's a measure to charge the customers. And example, if you're using Azure Data Factory, you might have heard about data integration units. If you heard about DTUs in SQL Data Warehouse. So Microsoft has their own terminologies to charge the customer, and it is never straightforward calculations. But here, similarly, like capacity units, you can think some amount of CPU cores or memories, so which will be used for the particular transformation or particular work that you are doing in the fabric. And SKUs maps to a Power BI SKUs here, as you can see. So if you are already using P1 Power BI SKU, right, it is equivalent to the F64. So here there is a F series. That means it's a fabric series. So F64, this is actually very important, right? Because so this is like a cutoff, right? And so pricing is basically um, it is a hourly charge or monthly charge. We are not included the pricing here. So what is the pricing for F2, F4, F8? So we don't have that pricing listed here. Why we are not included is it keeps on changing, and it depends on sometimes on the region and all. And also it depends on reserving capacity for years, right? Some organization does that, and there might be some enterprise level discounts also based on the organizations like strategic partnership with the Microsoft and so on, right? And so this concept of SKU, right? So if you understand like F2 is having two capacity, right? And if you go for F4, it is double the capacity. Similarly, it goes on multiplying 2x. It is 2x, right? Every step you go, it it doubles actually, and similarly the cost also doubles. But the main important thing, as I was telling, F64 is the important cutoff, because whatever you see above this, right? So is any SKU lower than this will require a Power BI individual license or Power BI premium license, and anything above this, right, above uh, F64 and above, right? So you can you still need a license, but they are free. That means storage is not so that is what it is when you consider F64 and above, right? And even though you have this costing for each capacity CUs that you utilize, so this is just for the this doesn't include the storage. This is just for the fabric cost. So storage is not included, but it is really cheap, as it is similar to the ADLS like Azure Data Lake Storage premium. Even though if you are using premium version also, unlimited version also, it just costs you around $0.15 per GB per month, which is if you consider at an enterprise level, it is very cheap in terms of costing. So storage is the least we can consider here. When in terms of cost, it might be like 99% of the cost you are giving it for Microsoft is only the capacity part of it, right, that you use. And Power BI license is still in use. Capacity can be shared or dedicated in case of premium. If you have shared capacity, then you cannot use Microsoft Fabric, which means you have something less than F64, right? If you have premium capacity, you can use Fabric, but users still will still need user accounts. So that means you need to still create a user accounts separately, and the accounts that you create, that is F64 and above. So you need a F64 and above, right? If you are using any licensing, so the accounts will be completely free. So there is no need of the accounts will not be any number of accounts you create, it will not be charged. But if you are below F64, that means F32 or below, so then you need to pay per user per month. So per account, right? For each account, so you need to charge. It will be charged, right, per user per month basis. And if you have a Power BI P1, so then that means like it is automatically, that means you are using F64 version of Fabric, right? And finally, it is important here to understand in terms of costing, so you can anytime pause it, right? So this makes very flexibility. It gives that flexibility to kind of choose the time slot where you want to run Microsoft Fabric and utilize the capacity, and when you can stop it and save a lot of money. So say you want to learn Fabric, and so what you can do is you can just use the Fabric basic version, that is F2 version. So you can practice all the course, the entire course that we are bringing as part of this course. You can just do that entire practice in just $4 to $5 probably, if you are regularly pausing that, and you can use using that whenever only it is necessary, right? So that gives any even at our organization level, right? So it gives the flexibility of controlling that cost. So by pausing it, so you choose any kind of SKUs here, right? And then you can reserve that SKUs for you, and you can pause it and resume it anytime you want, so that you can save a lot of money. Next, we want just to show you the another perspective of understanding the Microsoft Fabric licensing. So as you can see, the Microsoft Fabric licensing has at a high level, it has two options, right? So one is you can choose the capacity, like we already seen that. So where there is a capacity per CUs, right? Capacity units, where you can choose the capacity, and most of the organization, enterprise organization, will go with this option because it is having the dedicated capacity. And in this comes the option of Fabric SKUs and premium SKUs, right? You can create any of these. And if you want to use a per user or per account basis, so here the disadvantage is you have a shared capacity, and but you have option of free, pro, and PPUs. So we can see how we can utilize the trial version or free version for each users for 2 months in the upcoming video for the practice when we are jumping to the practice sessions. But at a high level, so Microsoft license has these options, so it's important to understand this. Finally, one more perspective is so if you're an organization or if you're an individual, how do you look into a Microsoft Fabric licensing, right? So as you can see, if your organization, so then you have two options. One is dedicated capacity, where you have a Fabric capacity SKUs. It introduces a pay as you go model. This is important to know, right? And the dedicated capacity has one more option where you have Power BI premium PSKs. And if you choose shared capacity, you have premium per user PPUs access only for Power BI items. And other thing is if you are an individual user, so if you're not working in an enterprise, or if you have your own enterprise, which is small enterprise where you work as an individual person instead of a team, so where you can still use different options, right? Where you have a free option where it works combined with the Fabric capacity, and also if you have a pro version, you can still use a pro version here. And so the advantage is it let share the Power BI content with other users. Hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.